Hi everyone, my name is Drew. I have had a blood transfusion every day for 1.5 years. Why and for what? I'll tell you right now. I grew up without parents, or rather, I had them, but they died early in a car accident. I was looked after by my uncle. He drank a lot and he wasn't home, but I was glad about that. He called me a loser, weak and worthless. He said that my parents had died because of their weakness and that they had not survived for the same reason. I hated myself and him for those words and rejoiced in his absence. So I grew up on my own. I remembered perfectly my mother's words that I should stay strong, that I should not give up under any circumstances, that I was strong, and that I would live happily ever after. Those were her last words in the hospital. I did not see my father conscious. He died almost immediately on the spot. My mother asked her brother to be with me, and they left us at the house. But my uncle was never a good role model. One day he closed the house and left. He was gone for 4 days. I ran out of groceries, couldn't leave the house, couldn't open the windows. I was only 4 years old at the time. Out of my last strength, I reached for the phone that was hanging on the wall and dialed 911. I couldn't even talk anymore. The door was broken into. I was almost taken away by the special care service, but my uncle understood that he would lose his house if they took me away. He made a deal with someone because he used to be a lawyer, so they let me go, and he took up the bottle again. My only entertainment was my neighbors and classmates. I went out almost every day for many years, often helped old people, swept the streets, and helped all my classmates. Sometimes I even looked after other people's children. I was paid for all of this. Despite my busy life, I had no friends, strange as it may seem. The thing is, I couldn't afford to get any closer to anyone. I kind of socialized with everyone and no one. I couldn't because I didn't have the money to go out, have fun, or go to someone's birthday party. I always went out of my way to help people, and people thanked me with money. I often visited my parents at the cemetery. I longed for them so much. One day at school, I felt bad. I noticed that lately I got tired a lot, and if I cleaned somebody's house a little bit, I got terribly short of breath. I didn't go to the hospital because I didn't have insurance and couldn't afford it, so I just walked around. It wasn't getting any better. I kept thinking it was because I wasn't eating enough or I was overdoing it. At school, I asked to go to the bathroom, and when I got up, I got really dizzy. I made it to the bathroom and noticed my lips had turned blue and even turned green. My head felt dizzy and I lost my balance. A girl I didn't know came out of a stall and she called my name for some reason. She was the one who called for help. It seemed to me that now the hospital would give me an injection and let me go, but the doctor said, "You have acute leukemia." And I was like, I see. Will you give me a shot? How much will it cost? The doctor asked for a guardian, but I informed them that he wouldn't come. Then he sat down, took my hand, and asked, "Do you know what leukemia is?" And I turned my head. "You have blood cancer," he said. I froze for a moment. "You mean I'm dying? Are you serious?" I asked in a calm tone. The doctor said that I had to go to the hospital and have blood transfusions. Again, I asked how much it would cost. Nothing else bothered me. "You should be thinking about something else right now," he told me, but I couldn't. "You don't understand. That treatment is beyond my means. I can't. I have no money," I said. The doc advised me to seek help, but I abruptly refused. No one knew about my problems. I never told anyone how I lived. Only my uncle knew. More than anything, I hated pity. I preferred to remain silent. "Apparently, you're a very good person," the doctor told me. I said that I would come by myself with the money, though for a couple of procedures only. I took all the money I'd saved from home and barely made it to the hospital the next morning. The girl who had called the ambulance was waiting for me by the door. "What do you want?" "I wanted to see how you were doing." "I'm fine, thank you. You can go now." "What did the doctor say?" "Nothing. They prescribed vitamins." Then my doctor came to the hospital. He saw me and said that everything was ready for a blood transfusion. That girl was surprised, and I just followed the doctor. As I was having the transfusion, I noticed my blue veins turning pink, and that my lips were regaining their normal color. I was so excited, I asked if I didn't need this anymore, but the doctor said I did, and more than once. However, my money quickly ran out. Everything was paid for, the room, the procedures, and the blood itself. The doctor said that if I could find donors, it would be cheaper, but the thought of having to ask someone for help made me shiver. My mother had told me I had to be strong. I ran away from the hospital that night, leaving the rest of the money behind. I locked myself in my house, turned off my phone, and lay on my bed. At first, I was fine, but after a couple of days, I collapsed in the kitchen at night when I got a glass of water. My whole body was burning, my fever was up, and I couldn't make a sound. And then my mother came to me. I don't know if it was delirium. She looked so sad, but I couldn't cry. I had no strength. I said to my mom myself, "I'm sorry. You told me that I had to live, that I had to be strong, but I didn't make it." I started cramping abruptly, and I heard someone knocking. I heard that girl's familiar voice outside. She had brought someone with her. The door was kicked in, but I was already unconscious. At the hospital, I came to, and I saw them giving me another blood transfusion. "What? No, don't do that!" I screamed. "You can't do that without my consent. I don't have the money for it, don't you understand? No one will pay for me. I'm alone. I have no one." I couldn't calm down, but the doctor came up and said,
"Everything has been paid for you. Some donors gave blood for you."
I wondered, "What did you say?" "But who? I don't have anyone. I'm alone." Just then, that girl came in from the hallway. "How are you doing?" Why are you helping me?" "I'm not the only one." Behind her came a whole crowd of people I knew. They were people I knew and strangers, my classmates, teachers, and even some members of the fire department, police, and doctors themselves. "What? But why are you all doing this for me? Don't you remember me? You saved me once from the dogs. I was walking alone and I was attacked. You are the only one who wasn't afraid to protect me from a pack of stray dogs. I think you've still got a scar on your leg. And these people, as soon as I told them you were sick, 120 donors showed up in 3 hours. These are the closest ones. The rest are in the hallway." Out of the crowd came a neighbor whose house I used to clean all the time. She said it was all paid for, that I could have peace of mind. "You don't understand. I don't have to ask for help. My mother told me to be strong," I shouted, and my neighbors responded in a chorus that my mother didn't mean that. They said they weren't helping me out of pity. They were just returning the favor.
"You once helped me carry heavy bags home. They weighed 4 times as much as you. Oh, and you carried medicine for me every day while I was sick.
And with my son, you do homework. He doesn't do it with anyone else like you. And for me, you read books while I had my eyes treated." These people said so many things. I couldn't hold back my tears. That girl came up to me. "My name is Sarah. I was 2 years old at the time, and like I said, you saved my life once. We know you have an uncle, and we know what he's like, and you've also never shown how hungry you were. Always smiling at everyone, just like you did at school. But strong can't always be strong. Let us pay you back," she said. These people and their acquaintances collected money for my treatment, collected blood, and visited me every day for 1.5 years. They replaced the paternal care I was so uncomfortable accepting. It turns out that sometimes you can just ask and then people will respond. My unwarranted pride wouldn't let me do that. Because of my lack of parents, because of my drunk uncle, I thought it was better to keep quiet and then people wouldn't know how pathetic you were. But I was wrong. Every month I got a little better. The disease responded well to treatment because it was detected early. Then I had a relapse. It has been 7 years since then, and I'm still alive and well. Those good people are still supporting me. Well, what about my uncle? He still drinks, but not with me anymore. I kicked the hell out of him.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brianna. What? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I heard what you were thinking. Yes, I can hear thoughts. Can you imagine? This is an incredible thing, and it happened to me very unexpectedly. As it turned out, in theory, instead of dying, I got this kind of gift. Well, I'll tell you all about it. In the meantime, guys, like the video, immediately subscribe to the channel, and write your opinion under the video. I will be interested in reading them. Let's get started. This happened last year, when I was returning home with my little brother Tommy after a walk in the park. I promised him I'd give him a ride on the roller coaster just so he wouldn't shoot me at my parents. Small witnessed how a guy came to me late one night and I pretended to go to bed and I walked with him. So he gave me a condition. Either I take him to the park or he tells my parents everything. Well, in general, I began to save money for his slides. Although, to be honest, we had a fun day. I probably haven't been alone with him for a long time. He usually pisses me off with what he puts up with, But that day was different, and Tommy and I talked a lot. I didn't think we'd have anything to talk about before, but it turned out that there was plenty. I even got to know my brother better. After the walk, tired and satisfied, we decided to go eat. Tommy was hungry, and we ate burgers on the way. When we were 3 houses away from the house, a dog we didn't know came running out from behind the bushes. It was huge. I shielded my brother, who immediately threw our food to the dog. The dog attacked the burgers, and while she was eating them, we quickly stepped forward. A moment later, I heard the dog running toward us, foaming at the mouth. She wanted to bite Tommy, but I blocked him. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my leg. The dog bit into my leg right on the hip. I screamed so loud that all the neighbors and even my mother ran out. Seeing the picture threw everyone into shock. My mother immediately rushed to us. She threw a slipper at the dog, but she did not let go. I was screaming in pain, and my brother was shaking all over, but I kept protecting him. Suddenly, a neighbor ran out with a shovel and hit the dog, so he ran away somewhere. Whose dog it was, we still don't know. I was bleeding. The dog had bitten through an important artery, and I was losing blood fast. It's good that the neighbors called an ambulance, which quickly took me away. An urgent transfusion was required. I passed out, and when I came to, it turned out that I had a transfusion. Only one nurse came to see me often. At first, I didn't understand why she was so nervous at the sight of me, and then I accidentally heard that she had transfused me with the wrong blood type. Against the background of unfamiliar antigens, I became ill the very next day. I had a fever and couldn't get up. It was so bad. I couldn't even tell my mom because I couldn't open my mouth. I cursed the nurse in my head. She, by the way, ran away from work, somewhere unknown, just like that dog. Surprisingly, on the 3rd day, I became much better. I even remember how a boy flew into my room. He brought me my favorite French fries and iced tea. I knew how much he also adored potatoes, and the fact that he brought them safely only for me, I was very pleased. Tommy was sorry it had happened, but I wasn't. How could I have done anything else? He's my little brother. Tommy leaned into me and rested his head on my stomach. A few minutes later, I heard his faint sobs. "I could have lost you. You almost died because of me," he said. "Don't ever say that again, Tommy. I wouldn't die for you," I told him, and he slowly raised his head and stared at me with round eyes. "I didn't say anything," he said to me timidly. "I was just thinking about it." At that moment, a slight chill passed over my skin, and I suddenly began to panic a little, just like Tommy himself. He looked at me as if I were an alien, and I put it all down to an accident, saying that I just blurted it out at random. He pretended to calm down, but the feeling of unease remained. When Tommy went home, I was still thinking about this situation. Confident that I wasn't crazy because I could clearly hear these sentences in his voice, I decided to test the theory and went down to the cafeteria. There were a lot of people there, and everyone was busy either eating or thinking, just what I needed. I helped myself to tea and lunch and sat down at the furthest table. I looked at the people around me, but I didn't understand or hear anything. At some point, I even thought that I really just imagined it. I finished my meal and went back to the room. Just then, my doctor came. He told me that my condition had improved dramatically, and this is extremely rare. We chatted, and the doctor started to leave. Finally, he suddenly said that I was very beautiful. I was embarrassed. Doc himself was a young guy, and he was very good-looking. At that moment, I was sure he hadn't said it out loud. I suddenly wanted to ask again, but I didn't. I decided to give myself time to sort myself out a bit. As a result, I arrived home a few days later. My life was back on track, but my abilities were also back on track. A couple of days after I was discharged, I heard my mother talking to someone on the phone. She was swearing loudly, but then I walked past her and saw her sitting at the table with her head down. My mother's hands fiddled with a glass of water, and I said clearly, I'm not going to let this stuff ruin our business. I'll do my best. So first of all, I will tell Frank. This is my father. Then she grabbed the phone and dialed Dad. I could see that my mother's lips didn't move, but I could hear her words. Yes, it was still creepy and scary, but I did not react as much as before. Then I started listening to my brother, my father, and my mother again. I did not always succeed, but I kind of trained myself, and over time, I learned to hear not only relatives, but even neighbors. I guess you could call my gift psychic or something. Do not consider it stupid or fictional, because everything can happen in this world. I do not know how much longer I will have this gift, but while I have it, I am considering how to use it correctly and best.